All right, this is Nathan Lee, the Brave Artist.
This is Melissa Sue, who doesn't know it all.
You know more than you give yourself credit for. And we are having another screen session over coffee. And today we're going to talk about something that's kind of personal to us that we're both involved in. We have written a screenplay that has kind of taken on a life of its own called Beast FM. And a summary of the film is, it's an exploration of our attention spans and how they're becoming shorter and shorter and shorter. And the film centers around a personality named Jack Mammoth. That's his moniker. John Leavenworth is his real name. And he's an online personality that split the entire country. You either love him or you hate him. Jack's whole thing, however, is common sense. The problem is that nobody hears exactly what he's trying to say. And that has made him a superstar, and it's also made him a villain, all in the same breath. It's pretty cool, the concept of it. But what's even more cool is how we see every day that evidence is actually true. It's like our movies are made for people that have, what is that, ADHD? Is that where you have like
expand deficiency or like focus?
Yeah, you can't focus on anything. And, even the style of movies that we watch, they're very different than the older movies, in the ways that they're narrated. Well, this goes over into our conversation. This goes over into our politics. We hear what we want to hear. And that right there is the big crux of Beast FM. And I brought the project, originally to Melissa because I'm not a screenwriter per se. Melissa, you're a screenwriter.
Yes, and first I was like, ooh, Nathan has a screenplay. I was like, ooh, I'm interested. And when I read it, I was fascinated. Of how well it was written and how powerful it was, the wording of how men thought. Like, as a woman, there's a lot of things I don't know about men, and also as a gay woman. So I don't know too much about men, but the depth of our lead character was so interesting to me. And I started asking a lot of questions to Nate. And then he mentioned something about red pill, something I don't have a clue, and I'm still trying to learn and investigate more about it. But it's something I will love Nate to really explain.
Well, and Melissa's bringing up when she says understanding men, although we're talking about attention spans and all that, there's a secondary story to Beast FM. And here's the interesting part. We let groups of people read the screenplay. And the thing that gravitated, or they gravitated to the most, was the secondary story, which is the relationships between men and women, the backdrop. There's a romantic story that is, if you can call it romance, now we have this, what I like to call neo-romances, which are more steeped in the reality of things. The audiences that we let read were more fascinated. They liked the idea of, talking about our shortened attention spans, but they really liked the truthfulness about male-female interactions. So here you have a straight man writing, and you have a gay woman writing.
Yep.
And what happened for us is that it was no longer about gay and straight, it was about human interaction.
Absolutely.
So now you get these, and we want to talk a little bit about that part. Red pill, everybody it's becoming a mainstream word, and people, there's so many websites, there's so many, podcasts about it. And you have the male perspective, the female perspective, and all this other stuff. Well, we're dealing with it from our perspective, from what I've learned. I probably would be classified, and I'll go on record as saying I probably would be classified as a red pill man. This does not mean I hate women. This does not mean that I am, just And I think there's a big misconception.
And that's where I came from, like, come from. I was like, what? Like, tell me more about it, because I was like, for a little research I did, it's like men are wanting the same rights as women at now this time. And I was like, but women has been fighting for her rights for a long time, right?
Correct.
And also, but what fascinated me about Beast of Femme was the truthfulness and the sincerity of a man sharing his life, and people not really understanding it, like you, Nathan, were saying, just focusing on what it was important for them.
Exactly.
In that moment of their life. And that's the only thing that will take.
Exactly.
How frustrating that could be.
Well, and in that way, the main character, his perceived invincibility is why these men gravitate. You know, there's a scene where the waiter's getting him drinks and he's there with his love interest, and she notices how they just seem to worship the guy. You know, one guy even says, "Jack, you saved my life." This is probably an individual that didn't listen to everything that Jack was saying. There's a woman in the parking lot who's treated quite coldly by her boyfriend or husband, and she gets angry when she sees Jack leaving the restaurant, going to his car, and she blames him for the downfall of their relationship. And it's implied that an infidelity has happened, but this guy seems completely, totally stoic and non-caring. So people are adopting bits and pieces of who they think that this man is. And he's become bored with all that. He's become bored with the fact that he can't really get his message across. And his manager is more into the competitive side of being a public persona than the actual star is. Jack says, "I simply want people to hear me. I simply want these conversations to be heard in total." Well, he finds out that his truthfulness has an effect on a female character. And her name is Chandra. She's a very strong, opinionated woman, and she seems to be the only person that can see and hear what he's actually saying. So she's not entranced by, catchphrases. She hears the entire thing.
And that's the beauty of when you said we made this with the humanity perspective, not if you're gay, man, white, black, Latino, or anything. For me, she was a character that was able to listen, get him a little bit, but still kind of like backing a little bit away from him, but coming back. But it is the insecurities that sometimes we have in our own ways of how we think society wants us to think, because we grew up that way.
Exactly. We've been given a script.
Yes, exactly. So that confuses sometimes.
Oh, yeah, because you want to live up to the script.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that Chandra in the story has to contend with. She's got to live up to a certain expectation, and she really hasn't asked herself what she wants as far as a relationship. Jack in the story is pretty much waiting on all of the characters around him to catch up to him. And it sounds kind of pompous, but he's standing there waiting on people. So one of the things that, and I'm not going to get into the whole story, but I think is interesting, is that his character development, or lack of, is very different, because most characters develop. Everybody else develops around him. And they're starting to kind of converge and figure out who they are, whereas the main character already knows who he is. And I think that that's one of the things that, when I look back writing, I was like, whoa, this guy, his character arc is completely different than, a lot of people that you see in movies. They're supposed to have the developmental character arc, but he's sitting there with his cup of tea or his glass of scotch, waiting on the world to actually be ready to listen.
And one of the things that I was very attached to is the hypocrisy of people around him.
Oh, yeah.
They're willing to judge, but he's trying to make a point about society, about life, about people being able to be open-minded.
Oh, yeah. He gets called racist by a person, by people who are racist.
Yes. That for me was like, wow.
And, it's funny. They don't even acknowledge, in one segment where they've committed an act of homophobia. And they can't even, they're so ready. And our society is really doing this right now. This is go get 'em culture. Like, find somebody to go get and tear to pieces. And I think we're such a cannibalistic culture, emotionally and psychologically and societally speaking, that we just look for somebody, anybody, to tear apart without really looking at who we are. I mean, we could be the biggest hypocrites in the world. It's like being an alcoholic saying, you know what, you're an alcoholic and I'm going to expose you when you just got over a hangover.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
and that's the thing, like, this is a very controversial story, a very controversial points of views that we're presenting.
Oh, yeah.
But what I love is the truthfulness of
yeah.
it. He's not afraid to tell you how he thinks, what he sees, what may happen, because of his age too, right?
Oh, yeah, he's an older man. That's the thing. He's an older man. Chandra's a younger woman. Now, I really didn't get into, I mentioned that I was probably would be considered a red pill man. And I'll say what that means so people aren't confused.
Please do.
Because I don't want people kicking my ass and being like...
It is good that you bring your point, because at one point it was like, okay, I need to know more about Nate, what he thinks about this as the writer of this, of the story.
Well, there's being red pill, there's having a red pill perspective, and I'll talk about it from my ideas of romance, because that's one of the major components in the film. I don't believe in the demonization of anybody, but I do believe in observing certain characteristics and patterns of people, and we all have them.
Yes.
Being a red pill man means that you're aware of those patterns. Some of those patterns are good, some of those patterns are bad. And I think when we get into personalizing it, we get angry. And there's a thing called red pill rage. I'm not going to call it hilarious, but it's when you get some information and you find out that it's true, and then you're like, I hate all women because all women don't like me, and then I'll never be the alpha. I'll never be this. I'll never be that. So there's a degree of anger when you figure out that certain perspectives might not be your own. You do better by trying to understand your partner. And then you have to decide if that's something for you. Well, in my life, I've decided a lot of people were not for me. So it makes you look like you might have been a player. That's not what that was. It was everybody should get in where they fit in. We don't have all those things from back in the days that made us stay married or in committed relationships, because we're not hunting bears. We're not living in log cabins. Mm-hmm. People don't necessarily depend on each other. It's a choice now.
It is a totally choice.
It is. And
you can stay or move on.
And this is going to make people uncomfortable. But one of the first things to die in a relationship is romantic love. And it turns into something else, but we no longer have the sparkles. We no longer have the... one of the characters experiences that. They've got a great boyfriend. And he's great, but their lives are predictable. And then this character hadn't really even thought about that, because he fits a box. Well, I'm not going to fit in a box. My thing is, I understand what it is. I understand that romantic love isn't necessarily the foundation that something can be built off of totally. It's a component so that you can, it's a segue into becoming that person's friend. It's a segue into becoming that person's, them becoming so endeared to you and you to them, that all of the other stuff bouncing off the walls every 30 seconds and, 5 times a day bedroom romps, they give way to something more important. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, when those feelings go away, we think something's wrong with the relationship. I recognize that people feel like that. I recognize that women feel like that. And I've had to change the way that I look at love and dating. I try to be as respectful as I can be. And It's just kind of shaped the way that I approach people. And
I think it's more about now you're taking care of yourself too.
that's pretty much what it is. If you're doing self-care and self-love, then you're perceived to be selfish.
Yep.
And I think that men and women have that in common. You know, women have become more empowered. They've become more sexually liberated, but there's a cost that comes with all of this. There's a cost with being stoic about love. There's a cost with not being stoic about love. There's a cost going all in. There's a cost not going all in. And I think Jack, he has a quiet moment. He realizes that because he's looking nostalgically at some things in his house that mean something to him. And he's thinking about a time when it was different. It was a little more innocent. You know the room that I'm talking about, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And that, you know, without him saying, oh, I used to be a different person. I didn't want to do that in the writing. I wanted to say I'm a different person through action. When he was looking at these little things that really shouldn't mean something to an older man, a 60-year-old man or however, it did.
I think we all kids, inside of us, even though we get older, we still think about our youth and how our life was before getting to that point of aging. And the whole thing is that we're not in this world just to be one thing. We grow, we develop, and then we start realizing what we like and what we don't like and what we're able to accept and not accept. And that's where I love our main character, because he has come to that point.
He trims away the fat.
Yes.
And that's hard to do because most of us live with rose-colored glasses on when it comes to life, whether we're talking about careers or love. We're going to set the world on fire. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And Jack is, I do what I do. I say what I say. I think what I think. And until somebody proves what I think to be an absolute lie or fabrication, I'm going to continue to do things the way that I've been doing them. And I believe when you get older, you don't really understand how you're going to view the world until you get there.
Yes. I'm still learning from my own relationships,
Yeah.
The way we date now, it's totally different. I just got divorced like 6 months ago, and I thought it was going to be forever. And then I'm now back into dating, and it's nothing like 10, 15 years ago.
It's very different, and it's not this love thing. Here's what was funny is, there's a scene in Beast FM where these guys and these women interact, and it's very clinical for these guys. It involves a contract. I'm not going to say what the contract was for, but they pull out a contract. Romance and love has become reduced to this sterile thing.
Yes.
that could end at any moment. It's kind of, the fragility of all that, while it's funny in this scene, it's absolutely frightening because it's hard to base your life off of somebody else. Like, okay, well, you have this much say in my life, and at any given moment, you could throw me over the edge and I can't do anything about it. It's hard to wrap your mind around it. So what do? You become sort of impervious to all of that.
What does that mean?
That means you become invincible to it. You become indifferent to it.
Indifferent to it.
You protect yourself. And poor Jack is in danger of becoming indifferent to life. So he's got to make sure that he enjoys the things that he does, but keeps life into perspective.
Yeah, and one of the people that read Beast FM, he was very, very intrigued to play him, and more because he's like, it's like it's scary to play a character now these days that it's so how can I say it? Not afraid to say what they want to say.
Oh yeah, this is cancel culture USA right now. This is cancel culture USA.
And that's the thing, I don't understand why we're canceling all this stuff. It is necessary. Well, our life is how we, it's our history.
Well, I think sometimes we we hit the easy button with stuff because it feels better. We're all about endorphins right now. And anything that makes us uncomfortable, we label it. And we label it as something so that we can put it way over there and we don't have to deal with it. That doesn't stop it from being in the room with you, okay? It's like closing your eyes and saying, I'm invisible, you can't see me. Yeah, I see you perfectly.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, you know, that part is pretty interesting. And by the way, I appreciate you saying that you thought my writing was good, because
I absolutely, I, you know, as an artist, as a sculpture painter, I knew you like that for a long time.
And you painted too, so you understood from that perspective of, you know, the way that I write, and I appreciate that.
Yes, I was very impressed. I was like, what? I couldn't put it down at all.
And you have a distinct style yourself, you know, as far as, because I remember when we started collaborating, you were talking about some visual components that you wanted to add to it. And I was like, that makes sense. All of these things made sense, and we spoke a similar language.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our interaction would be a good template for how people, and I'm not tooting our, yeah, I am tooting our horns. We met each other where we were at.
Yes.
And we met each other without any judgment.
No. That's one of the things with me. I have been judged all my life since I came to the United States and only knowing a few words in English, you know. So I will never judge anyone. And I will always, I'm here to listen and to see your perspective and your point of view. And I think that's why we became a great team to write this together. You know,
I appreciate our friendship too. I appreciate that.
And this is the thing. It's like, some people that read it said, why are you part of this? You don't get it. You're women. Like, this has nothing to do with you. And I was like, oh shit, this is awesome. This is interesting. This is great that I can bring the perspective, not as of a woman, but as of human.
As a human being. It has everything to do with one another. I've seen cinema where the people involved, they were gay couples. They were gay. But you forget that the relationship in those movies were gay because what? They do human things.
Yes. And this is what Beast FM it's all about.
It is. Let's take a quick break. I'm going to refresh on my coffee. We're talking about our project Beast FM, which is in script form right now. And we're going to get into some discussions about what people thought about it. And we're going to compare notes. So this is Nathan and Melissa for Screenplay. We're taking a break right now.
Bye.
All right. This is Melissa, Sue, and Nathan back again for the second part of Screenplay. Let's talk about, you know, you had touched on what one of the people that we want to participate in this, as far as the main character. But there were other people that read the screenplay too. Let's talk a little bit about their reactions to the screenplay.
Yeah, one of the reactions is like, a woman enters, right? And it's part of her lead character's life. And then what's going to happen to her? You know, some people were happy with what happened to her. Some people were like, why is she coming back?
Yeah.
Why is she insistent, right? Why, like, it's people like to get tortured or something?
Yeah.
Like, why if she didn't feel comfortable with it, why she continued wanting it? Why women feel the need that if they're treated, because she felt treated wrongly.
Yeah.
Right? Even though she was not treated wrongly.
But in her mind, you know, her feelings were valid, because if you're feeling a certain way, this is my belief. You don't dismiss anybody you're in a relationship with. And I think that was probably the only failing of Jack. Like one of the few failings. Is sometimes he was dismissive. And I think that this woman, you know, whether you agreed with her position in the scene that we're talking about, she wasn't validated. as far as, I don't agree with you, but this is my position. She was completely shut down.
She was completely shut down, but at the same time, why we cannot continue moving on and leaving the past?
Yeah.
What are those needs that we want in our lives that makes us feel or makes us want? Because I can tell you,
I don't know. I observe it all the time, but I don't know why we gravitate to the hardest thing to love.
yes.
I don't know why we do that. But one of the people that I talked to, that was an observation. The observation is, and everybody I talked to were guys. Like everybody was a guy. I can't remember if B read it or not.
I don't think so.
I don't think B read it. B's a good friend of ours.
Yes.
We're going to get her on the show too.
Awesome. I love you.
Shout outs to B in Portland.
She's one that you can depend on anytime. So
Oh yeah.
A fantastic artist, photographer.
On a side note, I'm not going to get off topic.
Yeah, this went out of topic right now.
But she's so good at what she does. She's like, I'm going to take up photography. And then she becomes better than everybody. Like, whether they're people that were trying to be her mentor, I'm going to become a visual artist. And then I was like, well, shit. Here I am trying to, be a mentor. No, you don't need a mentor. You need a damn agent. But anyway, some of the things that the people that I let read notice, like I said, they were predominantly male characters. They noticed a couple of things. One of those things was that the men and the women that were in this story, they all knew people like that. So when we talk about the archetype of people who come back to people, there's a saying, you always want what you can't have.
Always.
Okay? Nobody ever says why. Nobody says, why do you want it? I think what happens is we put value on things that we can't have. I mean, it's no different than, okay, well, these shoes look like Nike. Why don't you just buy these shoes? They're $29. No, I want to have the original, the absolute authentic Nike, but they do the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how people overlook people. We get caught up in this self-made and self-generated idea of importance for another person.
Is it an illusion?
An illusion. And sometimes the person didn't ask you to do that.
No, not at all. Like, wow, this is like really touching, and we're talking about relationships. It's something that I'm in it right now.
Yeah.
The illusion of a future that I said that I could have.
Oh, yeah, there's this ladder we climb.
And it's like,
yeah, and then you see what it is.
yes. Well, not even knowing the real person.
Oh, yeah.
But you're more into the illusion, and I think that has a little bit to do with one of her characters, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can romanticize a one-night stand, but that doesn't...
yes.
That doesn't make the person more than what they are. They're like, hey, I'm a good date, not a good mate. And they may have already told you that. That's one of the questions that was asked. Well, why are you still here? Mm-hmm. And that question seems very callous. But you know what? If people stop and ask themselves, why are you still here? Here's my theory. And I say this, and it used to piss off somebody very close to me. If you want to know how you got on page 365 of your life, all you need to do is read pages 1 through 364.
That's a great way of putting it.
You usually have all the answers as to why. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with something external. It has to do with something internally that you're dealing with, that you haven't come to terms with. I remember, when I was, dating and doing all that, the woman that was hardest to get, that was the one that I wondered, what the heck? How come she's not, why isn't she looking at old Nate? Come on. What was wrong with you? And the woman that was actually showing affection towards me, it was like, yeah, you're cool. And they end up becoming, and men and women both do it. I think it boils back down to the $29 shoe, which does the exact same thing that this unattainable shoe does. And most of us don't understand the concept of a bird in the hand beats two in the bush. You know, we go into that bush, we go into the thorns, we do all of that. And that bird didn't even ask us to go through all that. Then we get mad at that bird.
And that's where the problem happens.
Yeah.
when then you start realizing that all of this has to do with you, with the other person.
Yeah.
You are the person, you are the one who allowed all these things happening.
Yeah.
But then we want to blame somebody.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when
Exactly.
character comes to play.
Exactly.
Right? Let's blame him.
Exactly.
The outcomes that I decided to follow.
Yeah.
And that's where he's pissed off. He's like, what the hell? Continue listening to me.
Now, I'll tell you what, there is one other character that the people who read the screenplay, they were, I don't want to say that they were intimidated by, but the character of Sheila Shaw.
Oh, yeah, I was going to talk about that.
Yeah, Sheila is probably the toughest person in the story. And I know women like Sheila. Sheila is the breadwinner of her family. She deeply loves her husband. She is absolutely not afraid of Jack. As a matter of fact, they're actually rivals. And Jack is a reluctant rival. He's just, Jack is Jack. That's all we'll say. But Sheila she understands what's at stake as far as popularity, because now what is online, when you're an influencer, you're a personality, it's a battle of popularity. It's a battle of numbers. It's all these different things. There are things that Jack really isn't concerned with. But in Sheila's mind, Jack stands for something that is cancerous. And in certain ways, her husband is the complete opposite of Jack. This guy's supportive. This guy is, and there's no infidelity or third parties between them. Everything that happens to that couple, and this is why I like Sheila, because as tough as she is, there are still things that she allows to infiltrate her relationship, but there are things that she allows to infiltrate while she's en route to trying to make this future, with her husband. She never forgets about him, but it feels like it to the husband. So the dynamic of men and women shifting roles, the breadwinner, the supportive spouse, well, it's flipped,
And it's really flipped, and that was something that I really enjoy reading from your story. And I had to play it in a screenplay format, right? The technical aspects of how, when people are reading it, how they can see that relationship together. For me, I have always cheered for her, right?
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, if I think about just no men or women, I feel she lacked a little bit,
But all human beings do. All human beings lack something. The best of us lack something. And that's what I like about her character flaw. Because overall, what does she want? The best for both of them.
Yeah.
They don't have any kids together. And that was a career choice.
But here it comes when we're talking about, maybe tell me if I'm wrong, the red pill, right? Because some people think the red pill is whatever man wants, and that's the way it is, correct?
And that's not really, you can be a red-pilled human being, and that's what I think, and I'm not criticizing, different personalities that are in the, in the YouTube universe or in the Rumble universe. But I think when you have people talking about or pointing a finger, they say they're red pill, and they're pointing a finger at another person. You got women that are pointing the finger at men that are pointing the finger at women. Mm-hmm. We fail to miss what's in the middle. We both have been in a circumstance that has caused us to be what we are.
And here comes a point I want to make. Why in a relationship we cannot walk next to each other instead of being one on top or one behind, right? And that's how I feel with those two characters.
Yeah.
It's like, why now you had to be better than the other one? But probably it's not being better. You just feel like you can contribute more to it.
Exactly.
Then we forget about the feelings and what the other person wants.
Exactly. And when you get into, and that gets into the whole idea of masculinity, a lot of people think that when you talk masculinity, we're talking about being able to lift up a car by yourself. You know, I'm a hunter. I can do all these overtly masculine things. But the one thing that I understand as a man is our need to feel useful. And with this character, the husband, his role was a support role. And we find out that he's an accomplished man because he's got degrees. He's a very, very accomplished man. But they, as a partnership, decided that we will go this route, and I will sacrifice this for the greater good. It doesn't stop him from feeling useless. And I think that's where a lot of the problems begin, because Sheila's like, go team, we're going to go get this, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to kick Jack's ass in the middle of all this. And sweetie, we're going to go to Paris. We're going to love each other. But I got to do this first. Traditionally, a lot of men have been in that position. Mm-hmm. And with this role switch, you know, I think we see some of the needs of people, you know. In the end, love really means more to Sheila. And it means the same thing that it means to her husband. It's just that along the way, she didn't forget about him. And he didn't resent her. You know, there are a couple of things that we forgot about between us. The journey in between. She's thinking about the destination. And he's like, well, damn, we got to live life while all this is happening. I miss you. That's what it was.
And we were just talking about the rate of divorces, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I was very surprised at what you said about lesbians, you know, gay people, lesbians in particular, and you said 70%.
The poll that they had, the study that they had in lesbian relationships, a 72% divorce rate.
Divorce rate, okay.
Which is not far removed from heterosexual relationships. Mm-hmm. A 65-70% divorce rate, so they're neck and neck. I don't have the numbers on men, like gay men that are married. I don't know the numbers yet, so.
It comes to a point. It still comes to the point of how much you respect each other, and respect each other's goals, and respect each other's wants.
Well, and respect and love are two different things.
Thank you. That's what I want to come to the point.
Sheila knew how to love him, and she did. There was never any question about love. But respect, that became more nebulous, you know, and you see that because this guy's cooked dinner. And work gets in the way, and she's like, look, okay, I'm going to eat dinner, but, you know, right now I'm busy. But for him, it was his only way of showing, you know, love towards her. So when the respect wasn't considered, you know, things became kind of janky between them.
Yes.
And I think the complexity of that relationship and not having, because if you think about it, she would be considered the antagonist of Jack's because they're in competition. But she's not the antagonist of the story. If you look at the overall story, she's just a person that is living a life she happens to be in opposition for 8 hours of the day when she's on the clock working, you know, in the studio, getting her show together. She's an adversary.
And this is why I'm so excited to make this project, because we're going to have so many perspectives of people after they watch it, how they felt. Yeah. Because they're going to be like, well, Sheila, it's great, it's good. This is the woman we want.
She never falls. She never gets intimidated. She never gets pushed around.
But at the same time, I'm thinking, you know, in my own, here's where it comes, our film to, it's going to be, I'm so excited about it, because people are going to be related to our characters in different ways, right?
All of my guys said, there's somebody that they identified with, or they were those people at some point in their lives.
And that is the beauty of this project.
Yeah.
This is the beauty of, let's open the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Let's open the conversation. Let's figure out. it's not let's figure out the right, correct way to go with our lives. It's more of let's understand each other where we come from.
Well, that's the first step. You know, we can't do anything about anything till we understand what the problem is or if there's a problem. If men and women are just different, they're just different. You know what I mean? Because and we need to stop asking each other to be, you know, like the other one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is where I wanted to come to that point. And that's what people are missing, the genuine.
Genuine, yeah.
Being genuine.
Yeah.
It's what we're needing now. It's like, I really feel that way. There's less people that way now these days because they're trying to please
everybody.
Yes.
And ultimately, when you figure it out, it kind of leads full circle back to where Jack is. And he's just waiting for everybody else to figure it out.
And I'm just so excited that hopefully we get the chance to make this film. And more because I really want this story to be out there in the way that we can explain a little bit relationships, right?
I think it is a modern human relationship story. I don't think that it's necessarily a love story. I think it is a human relationship story. And I'll tell you what, just to let listeners know, we want your support too. And we invite you, when we get all these things organized, we want you to come out and be a part of a dialogue about Beast FM. So we will be having some social gatherings, and we want to talk more about it, and we want to get you involved. We think it's a good story.
And we would love to hear what you have to say too. And that is our safe place with this podcast, that we can really opinionate of what we think.
Exactly.
And that is what I'm doing this for. You know, I want to see other ways of thinking or how people have lived their life. And I'm very curious.
Oh, we love life stories. That's one thing that we really have in common. We love life stories. And we would love for you to weigh in. Of course, we want you to share, like, and subscribe. But we also want your opinions. So follow us on the Screenplay podcast as we continue to give you new updates on where we're at with Beast FM. And we could use your support. And until the next time, this is Nathan.
And this is Melissa Sue.
For Screenplay, telling everybody to take care.
Bye-bye.